Welcome back to the 4skins podcast 2021. We are back.
Shout out.
Yes, it's taken us a while to get to this point, but we're back. And we have with us Percy and Ashley Thaba. Percy and Ashley, how are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. We've seen you on TV.
Yeah.
We see you conducting marriage counseling sessions. We see you advising couples on marriage. How did that come about? Tell us a little bit about that journey for you guys.
Okay.
You're going to talk?
Go on.
Well, I think, okay, so we've been married 17 years. So before we got married, we were in a church. We were church planters. So when you start a church and a lot of the people in the church were younger people looking to get married, then they start looking to you to advise them. And you're like, oh, guys, we're not even married. But because we were the leaders in the church, they looked to us for advice. And so I think we started back then, that was probably 19 years ago. And then as we got married, and one of the things that because he's Black, African, and I'm white American, the cards were set up in such a way that we assumed it would not be the easiest marriage.
Right.
You know, you hear marriage is hard, but then if you take two people of different races, it's hard. Then you take two people of different cultures, it's hard. Then you take two people of different socioeconomic levels, it's hard. So we kind of assumed. So we did a lot of pre-marriage counseling. We read a lot before we got married. We just really prepared for the worst because we assumed it would be. And then now, because we prepared so much in advance, we paid a lot of money. We put a lot of energy into that, a lot of time. Marriage has been like so easy. I mean, you know, for lack of better words, you know, it's like when your foundation is really strong and you put the time at the beginning to set the right foundation, it just gets easier and easier and easier. And so I guess what has happened over time is people watch us and without us really trying to display good marriage, people are like, you guys seem to enjoy marriage. We don't see a lot of that. And so then we, without any really advertising, we just keep getting people saying, what's your secret? What are you doing? And then that led to a TV show with people saying, what's your secret? What are you doing? And then that's led to a book. We have our own book now about marriage, which the Vice President and Minister of Gender Affairs just paid to translate into Setswana. And then villages all over the country are requesting it. We just did a campaign in Raycops because the chief said, please come teach us about marriage here. And now Saroe and Letlakani are asking, can you come to our villages and teach? Hansi, just this morning, the Hansi chief is writing me and saying, we're right now in the Kotla and Hansi, we're using your book and we're teaching people about marriages. And what did she say? She just wrote just now and said something in Setswana.
So yeah, so we learn from other people.
So she just wrote and took a picture and sent that Setswana thing. I was like, what does this say? Then he just read it.
Yeah.
So that's how I guess that's a short story of about 19 years of
in 3 different countries, by the way.
3 different countries.
This started in Canada, and then we moved to the States. Still did some marriage counseling, but mostly marriage training at the time. I mean, we were getting trained as well. We've had a lot of couples speak into our lives.
We've sought that out. It's something that I think a lot of people, they want this perfect marriage and then they don't. Like, people will come to us on a daily basis. I bet you we get about 5 people a day that'll come and ask for counseling. And we've had to start charging over the years because our time is too valuable. And as soon as you say no, you have to pay, and they're like, oh no, we don't have money. And you're like, great, check out a divorce. Tell me how expensive that costs. You know, check out a miserable life. Tell me how much that costs. You know what I mean? It's like people don't want to value doing things that will actually encourage their base level of happiness on a daily basis. And it's so valuable, and yet people just don't want to put energy into it, sadly. So for us, we've decided if people don't want to put the money in, then they don't really value us and our advice. So we're not going to take our valuable time and pour into people who don't actually value it, because we have so many people pulling at our attention, and we have 3 small children as well that need our attention too. So yeah.
I noticed that the ladies sent the text in Setswana. The assumption is that you should know Setswana, or what is it there?
Wait, what?
the chief.
Oh, the chief.
Yeah,
okay.
The chief. Yeah, no, I guess she sent because it's a proverb, and she wanted to share that way, and she just said, your husband will explain what this means. So she literally, when we were driving here, she literally said, what does this mean? So I read it, and so I had to interpret.
Okay. What gives you guys the guts? What gives you guys the audacity to tell other people or to guide other people?
Exactly, yeah.
in marriage or in relationships.
Yeah.
What is it that you guys feel you have that other people could learn from?
Yeah,
Percy? What is it that you think?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Because you might have something better than I do, so why should you listen to me? You know, like, but what it is, you know, both of us, each one of us has a relationship with Christ. You know, we have a relationship with God, and that's where we draw, you know, our wisdom, our knowledge, our strength. And so from that, you know, you can't help but, when you live for Christ, when you live for God, you can't help but say, everything that I have that I think is good to share, I want others to know. So, you know, the basis for us to share is not to say we are the gurus, but basically to say, hey, you know what, I'm enjoying this thing. You know, we are married, we're enjoying our marriage. We're raising kids. It's difficult, but we're loving it. You know, we're doing this and that, and we're enjoying it. And because of it, we want to share with the world how we're doing it. If you can learn something from it, that's great. If you think, no, that won't work for me, you know, then it doesn't. I mean, even the show, the way we do it is, we answer questions based on our lives, how we do things. We don't necessarily prescribe and say, this is the way it must be done. You know, we just say, this is what has worked for us, you know. Why don't you try it? It might work for you. And most of the time when people do try, because the principles we talk about are actually based on biblical principles, you know, of what God says a good relationship should be, you know, how I should treat my wife, how she should treat me. So, I mean, most of the time, of course, it works, not because it's what Percy and Ashley necessarily do, but because these are godly principles that have been tried and tested over the years, and they will continue to work.
But I think just add on that, we just did this big campaign at Recops, and so we were going through the book, which the book is basically, our book is based on our TV show. So there's a chapter on how to affair-proof your marriage. So our strategy has always been to just share our life. This is what's working for us. You do whatever you want to do. If you can learn from us what not to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's true. We don't really care. Like, we just want to get the ball rolling to start talking about marriage. Because I think sometimes it's just talking about it solves. Even if you start talking about those topics and go, we agree that we're never going to do it like them, and that makes you happy, then go for it. You know what I mean? But anyway, one of the things that, I don't think I even told you this, that somebody said is, but there was a question, is pornography an affair? And so we shared that we personally don't look at pornography because we feel like bringing a third party in is like, it cheapens the other person. Like, why do I need somebody else but you? And the person was like, no, but you just talked about you didn't tell them it's wrong. And I said, because that's not our style to go and tell people what you're doing is wrong or right. We're just, our style is to tell people, this is what works for us. Here's why this works for us. You make your own decision. That's between you, your God, and your spouse. You know what I mean? So I think that's another thing about, like, you ask the guts, because it doesn't really take guts to just share your testimony per se, because you're not really telling you're doing something wrong, because then that would be assuming a very arrogant stance, in our opinion, because we are not God and we are not gurus. In fact, that's another thing we tell people is we're not even marriage counselors. I mean, people come to us all the time like we're like professional counselors. We're just living it. But I think that's one of the things is, a lot of times you find the people that have all the head knowledge, they have some of the worst marriages, because it's here. It's not, you know. We just share, this is what works. I don't know if that's what the book says you should do or not. You know what I mean? It's just what works for us, you know? So yeah, that's...
And I think, actually, just quickly to add on to that too, it's that practicality. We find over the years when we've needed assistance, you know, you are given a lot of book knowledge, you know, but what's the practical? You know, like... We are, you know, like we said, you know, we believe in Christ, we pray about things and whatever. But if I come to you for help, yes, you can tell me pray about it, but that's not enough. You know, what can I do? You know, like, so, like, that's what we really enjoy about our marriage, is that we are very practical. You know, like what we are talking about here, you can easily come home or
She has been to our
our
home.
farm
She has
or
lived in our home, basically.
our farm and whatever. We're just practical people. So I think that's also
Are
a
they living
differentiator.
They are.
You know, that's a differentiator.
You know, you said
She's
something
seen me in the
earlier.
mornings, like in my bathrobe, in my clothes. She knows.
Yeah.
You said something earlier that's interesting. You said
Yeah.
before you even thought about getting married,
Yeah.
you did a lot of prep, you did a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of counseling as well. How do you know to do that? Because I feel like sometimes people, they just jump in and without knowing expectations, the other person's expectations, and it's going to be different. And then you get into there and then you're like, but I expected this to happen and it's not happening the way I wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
So how do you guys know to like do such a thorough research? Because it seemed like you went over and above what ordinary
The
couple would do.
Bible. The Bible says in Proverbs that a smart person seeks out good counsel.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a biblical principle. You know, sometimes people ask us, how do you know all this stuff when you haven't been to school to be for counseling? The Bible is like a really cool book. I mean, it deals with everything you need. So when you follow the Bible is very clear about protecting the heart, about guarding your, heart's the wellspring of life, about seeking counsel. There's knowledge. The person who seeks wisdom is one who is wise, who has a happier life. So it just made sense that if you're going to get into a lifelong relationship, you should seek some wisdom from those who have done it before you successfully. So I think that was really why.
Yeah,
It just
I mean,
made sense to us.
Yeah, I mean, she also touched on it earlier that because of the different cultures and backgrounds, we also were expecting that this will be more difficult than just the normal relationship from the same culture. So that also, the fact that it was going to be an interracial, it was an interracial relationship
Come
already.
on, Percy, you have to go deeper.
We had,
on that.
no, I mean,
We need to hear more about
Before we go there,
yeah,
Oh, man.
before we
go
go, yeah,
Where you want to go?
I want to talk about this affair proofing thing.
yeah.
I knew that from your
Yo, you space
I'm not sure whether I was start with that or the porn one. first, but
No,
that
whichever,
one-
yeah.
How do you affair proof a marriage?
Yeah.
Because personally, I don't believe it's an
Yeah.
affair if you're not married. It's
Yeah.
you're exploring.
It's sexual immorality.
Yeah.
You're exploring your options.
Uh-huh.
And then if you're having sex before marriage.
Yeah.
That's another thing we're trying to teach is that when you follow the Bible, you follow the Bible. A lot of times in the church, you see people getting pregnant, you see couples, living together, and because the cultural doesn't condemn it, then in the church we seem to be very silent on it, So I mean, like you said, it's not an affair per se, but you'll find so many people because they're not married, they have the liberty to sleep with this person, be with this person, just because there's not a ring on it, but there's still. When you're still married to Jesus,
Yeah,
he has an
100%.
expectation of your temple to be one that's kept pure, and I think that's the first step in affair proofing your marriage is affair proofing, so to speak, your single life to protect your heart so that when you get married, you don't have to change your lifestyle. See, it's very difficult if you've already been somebody who's
You hit hard there.
dating different people, sleeping with different people, and then you suddenly expect to get married and think that you're going to be faithful.
Yeah.
You've
It's
got
not
so
happening.
many habits you got to break. You've got so many mental pictures you got to deal with for the rest of your life.
okay. I get
You've got
you. I
so
get
much
you.
stuff that you got to do. Like, I am the only person he has ever kissed. We are the only people we've
Percy.
ever slept with.
Yeah, I mean,
He done did it again.
it's not easy. Sexual purity is not easy.
No.
Because
no.
it's a choice one has to make. I mean, I'm tempted to look at porn. I'm tempted to, I see a beautiful girl and I'm like, this thought start, so it's a choice to say, okay, I've already seen. It's not like I can unsee, So now what's the next step that I must take?
Plan of action.
Am I going to let my thoughts go forward and say, okay, should I ask her out? Should I ask for a drink? I have to make conscious decisions to say, no, this is it. Okay, yes, she is beautiful, whatever. Right now, I'm talking about even before marriage. Then you have to say, no, I know this is just lust. It's not like this is really gonna go anywhere. It's because I'm infatuated. She's beautiful. I want to be with her. But okay, then what? But now in marriage, if I see, then one of the things that we actually talked about on the show and in the book about affair proofing is that I actually, and this again depends on, the couple.
Yeah.
For us, we are so open. And our thing is, let's talk about it. So like if I see a beautiful girl, I'm tempted, whatever, and I have these thoughts, I'd love to. One of the first things that I'll do is I'll tell her about it.
You tell her.
Yes, I will.
Because then it's
as soon as I tell her, no, but for me, that's how
You're reporting yourself.
Yeah, no, because as soon as I tell her, then it's not a secret anymore.
That's so
and it
true.
doesn't have a foothold on me. And this thing, it's like, it's history now. But if I hold on, the longer I hold on, I can tell you, the longer I hold on, the longer it becomes more of a stronghold, because now it's something that I have to keep asking myself, but you know what, I didn't really do anything, but I didn't really, like I go out to rapper for a project and whatever, and she's not here, she's in Gaborone. It's okay, I'll just tell her when I get back in 2 weeks. It's like, then it festers, I keep thinking, what I've realized is the sooner it happens and I tell her, the better, honestly, So sexual purity is a very big thing. Like she said, I really loved what she said. You have to protect yourself, because if you start, it's like setting a precedence, if I allow myself to look at porn now, that arouses me and whatever, and next time I need harder stuff, just like that, to the point that now it's even going to ruin your actual physical intimacy with your spouse, because you are used to all this stuff. That's what maybe your spouse doesn't even arouse you anymore, because now you need it done a certain way, and maybe your spouse doesn't even do that stuff. So like there's so many components. We could literally sit here the whole day and just talk about just that.
Talk about porn, like talk about practicality, because we're all about practical. Aren't there like computer softwares? Like, didn't you tell me just the other day you can put? So maybe talk about like actual. Yeah. Practical. We like practical. Let's make it practical.
So like practical. Like the other day, I was talking to Ashley and I said, this thing is so dangerous nowadays. You get on the internet, stuff starts popping up. And I have some antiviruses, on this thing, and you think, okay. And I actually called her the other night. I said, come see what's popping up on my screen. So like, there are a lot of softwares that you can actually put up and whatever. And you can also set up where, your spouse or somebody you trust, your accountability partner, gets an email when you start going to certain sites that you shouldn't go to. So like there's so much out there for accountability. So like, if you need that kind of stuff and you need to be held accountable, it's worth it.
So it's you choosing accountability.
Yeah. Percy, they say a married man is attractive, especially a married man with kids. He's domesticated. He's a woman.
Like a cow.
And I want to ask you something extremely personal.
Yeah.
How have you handled women that have thrown themselves at you, or that have made it apparent that, hey, if you want this, you can get it. You know what I mean? How do you handle women like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's okay. It depends at what level, right? Like you're at work, you're talking to somebody and you think, no, this is just work related, whatever. Yeah. But you start, reading on certain social cues and whatever. Then you have to remind them, no, I am married, and
you just tap
no, we have strategies.
But
we have strategies.
He'll
call me on like speakerphone. I love you. Can't wait to see you. So that the person sees.
Exactly.
Like we have strategies. Or he says, come to my office when this person's here. Make sure you wear something cute and like
so clever.
We have actually done this.
Okay.
I mean, like, I'm working on it. Working on a tender. We're working really late. Just show up. I don't have to invite you. You know where I am. Just show up. And just, say, no, I've just come to check on you. I've, to drop some food, whatever. But then if it's something like, being a leader in church, this is very common because we've even, seen it. We all know about it. Even, you hear about a leader and they're falling into sexual immorality or whatever. It's because it's very common
it's
now
very easy.
And it's very easy. A lady comes to me and says, I need you to counsel me. To advise whatever. And
then they'll say something like, I don't meet with women alone.
There's a need.
And then the woman will say, and this has happened, they'll say, no, but I'm not comfortable with your wife being there. Then he says, then I'm not comfortable counseling you. Find someone else. So he just doesn't
I
leave
just
the door
have to
open.
be very again, the little foothold if I allow it from the
Yeah.
beginning, I might not be able to stop it. That is part of my philosophy. Is it's better I stop it now than to let it. Even because, and the mindset actually started with alcohol. I know I'm kind of changing the topic because my dad was an alcoholic for 42 years. So like one of the things, like, when friends would drink and stuff, I'm saying it's not wrong. The Bible doesn't say it's wrong to drink, but I don't want to even touch in case that whole,
slippery slope,
addiction
gateway.
thing is there, even in me, because dad was was an addict for 42 years. So like it's the same thing, it's the same principle I use for these things as well, even for, sexually. So like if I start counseling you, I just say, no, just one meeting. I don't know what could happen in that meeting.
Many more meetings.
And then, so there could be
And then the problem is a lot of times these girls, they become very emotional manipulative and they prey on people. Like, when we first got married, Percy actually was weaker about this because he would come to me and say, no, but she's uncomfortable. She's really struggling. Like, let's respect her. And I'm like, you know what?
No.
Anyone who's not comfortable with me being there, you need to run as fast as your feet will carry you, Percy, because she is manipulating you. She's playing your emotions.
That's right.
So at first Percy would be like, no, but like, I mean, such and such is hurting her and she doesn't feel like she wants to share. There's always these stories. We've now we're at the level where we don't even have time. He'll just be like, then find somebody else. Thank you. Hang up the phone. We're done.
Yeah,
Like,
so I'll either say, you know what, let me refer you to my wife, talk to her.
thing is annoying.
If he's not,
because
if she's not comfortable with that, then
And then circling back to what you said
Those are
earlier,
brave.
Percy,
Like-
you said
Well,
you said
you have to
something.
get to
there's
that
one
level.
girl that just called him, like straight up called him on the
Oh,
phone and said, I saw you on thing. You can have me, whatever. I'm at the bus rank. You can come pick me up.
Wait, what?
Straight up called him. And then he's like, let me speak to your wife. And I was like, hi, can I help you? And she's like, no, there's no need to talk to you. I was talking to your husband. And I was like,
Oh wow.
you will not be calling my husband again. Like,
And Percy, I wanted to mention something that you said
no one's
earlier.
been stabbed.
You said that you actually report these things to Ashley, and I wanted to get a perception on this. That don't you ever feel like, how dare you look at somebody? Like, does that mean that I'm not enough for you? I just want to know, like, how does it make you feel when he reports that he saw somebody that they're attracted to, and probably he wants to do something about it?
Yeah, before she answers, I did touch on it that couples are different. I mean, we have counseled some that say, if you told me that, I'll slap you so hard because I don't have to know about it. But that's not us. So anyway,
okay, so for me, I think I'm logical enough to know that the human nature is to be tempted, and sexuality is something that every person has, like hormones. So for me, it would be ignorant of me to think that my husband doesn't look at someone else. So because I desire emotional intimacy, then I want to know everything that he is dealing with. So for him to tell me, it's not like I don't know it already happens. I mean, it just means now that's an emotional area of his life that I get to share, which means our emotional intimacy gets to be deeper. So, of course, there's that first initial sense of like jealousy, like, what, you thought about her and not me? What, really? Like, is she this? But then you go, but I mean, the fact is you told me, which means you don't want her. Your mind is just tempted because you are a human, and on this side of planet Earth, you will struggle with temptations. Like, so I think I just, again, I go logically back in my mind. He told me, which means he doesn't want it. If he wanted, he would have kept it in the dark. So will I fault him on his humanity? No. Like, do I, in fact, applaud him on the fact that he let me into that emotional space of his mind? Yes, because now that means we're deeper, and now that means I get to share more of my struggles with him. There's no like, well, I couldn't share with him because he would never struggle with that. Now I know he struggles. He knows I struggle. So we get to be like sinners together. You know what I mean? Like, infallible people doing life together. We're not perfect, so it doesn't, I'm not saying if he did act on it, that would maybe be a different story. Thankfully, it's never gotten to the actions because he always stops it at the thoughts. And the thoughts are not as hard to take as if he were to confess that he had done something,
That's so true.
True.
So, yeah.
And for both of you, would you think infidelity would be a deal breaker?
I don't know. I mean,
That is a good question.
it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
We have talked about it before.
We've talked about it. It will be difficult to deal with. Of course, on the grounds of like the Bible would, would allow it to be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
However, I want to believe that I wouldn't lead with that. It will be very difficult because, the way that I do life, the way that she does life is we're just vulnerable. I'm as open as whatever. So whatever is going on in my heart, in my life, she knows everything. And the same, she does it with us. So if she did it, it will be, it wouldn't be necessarily the infidelity. It will be that break of the trust at that level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have opened each other's hearts so much to each other. I think it will be just that break of the trust that, was I not enough, and not even to that level, but to say, why didn't we talk about it?
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me what was going on? Because it always starts emotional. Okay, it doesn't just
It's
go
not-
to
it's
the
not an
physical.
accident, it's not
It's
a-
it has to start somewhere, and it's a build up. It's a
Premeditated at some
process.
point.
So I think for me, what would be very difficult for me to accept would be, how did you get to that level without you
coming
being
to me.
open with me, because we've always been open with one another. So infidelity will just be the fruit of the real issue. The real issue will be the trust and the openness, which we pride ourselves on, that we are always open and we trust each other. So I think that's what will be very difficult.
It's hard to say what would be deal breakers or not.
Yeah.
When we do counseling, we've realized that finances are actually more of a deal breaker than infidelity. You usually can work through an affair, but it takes a lot of work, because normally the only way to work through an affair is basically for, like, if I was the one cheating on him, I would have to give him, look, he already has passwords to my phone, my computer and all. That's part of the affair proofing, is that there's no secret life I have. But I would have to, or he would have to ask me, can I check your phone every day? Like, can you allow yourself to be accountable that you don't get a second phone or something? Like, can you, because that's what some people do. Okay, you can check this one, and then I got my side check on this side, and then, I would have to tell him where I am at all points of the day. And so a lot of times we counsel couples, they don't want that kind of accountability. They want the spouse just to forgive them.
Yeah.
But then when the spouse is like, I don't know where you are. Why are you checking them home? You don't trust me? Yeah, I don't trust you. You broke that. You know what I mean? So then that's when usually the breakdown happens. Usually the spouse is willing to forgive the first time if the person is like, I'm really sorry. But the only way to restore that trust is now to give them full access into every part of your life and full accountability. And that's where now it becomes where you have to, am I really saying I choose you to the point that I give you full access? And I won't be offended if you say, where were you, what are you thinking? I want to see your phone right now. Who are you talking to? But if you want to work on it, that's where it comes to. And
But why do you think it's difficult though? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, have you ever had to intervene, looking into his phone, into his DMs, into his WhatsApp messages, and said, Percy, this woman clearly wants something more.
Oh, totally, all the time. Right, you would say the names right now. I'm not, but I'm just telling you. We have people on his radar. There's 3 ladies right now on his radar that we've already
Popular there, Percy.
He's such an eligible
You're
guy.
high in demand.
I think you already
interesting.
said married man something,
Yes.
a magnet or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, this is juicy. You said 33 currently.
Yeah, there's 3 right now that we
There's a list.
that are on our radar.
There's a whole list.
I actually have a theory about that creates that. It's
What?
that whole people want what they can't have.
Yeah.
But they also see the dream and they're like,
That's
I
literally
want
what
that.
it is.
So
Yes.
yeah.
But they don't know what you have to put up with to
Yeah.
make him.
Precisely.
Percy knows that.
Because it's not that rosy.
They're seeing the polished product. They don't know what I had to do to polish this. Yeah, exactly.
But you guys have been married, 17 years, right?
17 years.
Don't
Oh,
you think
congratulations.
the time now is different as far as how men and women relate to one another?
What do you mean?
In what sense?
Well, now we've got Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
There's a lot more.
Back in the dinosaur ages,
avenues.
we
A lot
got
more options.
Swiping left and
Yes.
right.
And even just the general culture, it's
Yeah.
a very, very
shallow.
It
doesn't promote depth of really. Yeah.
It does make a huge difference. I mean, when we started dating 2001,
20 years ago.
Yeah, the internet was just, we also just getting into, learning a little bit about, the internet and stuff. Now, like you said, 20 years on, I mean,
it's evolved into
so much
something
has
else.
changed.
Yeah.
So even us as a couple, how we do things, how we relate, how, we have had to learn how we evolve with it. But I mean, yeah, I think what you're touching on though is more a generic thing about just life in general, is that people are not relating like physically with one another, would rather just,
text.
DM, text and whatever. And so because of that, you lose on the intimacy. There's something about looking into your eyes and talking to you, like you read the emotions and everything rather than just like texting or whatever. And it's just, you lose a lot, obviously on emotion in terms of connection and whatever with the other person. So the challenges are different, but what we've found to be important, regardless of the medium that's being used to communicate, what's important is the principle. Are you willing to communicate, and are you willing to do so openly and truthfully? That principle will never change. And it doesn't matter whether we're living in a virtual world, a physical world, or whatever. As long as you are willing to communicate openly and truthfully, the rest will be fine. You can adjust to anything.
Just to jump on that one, do you think the reason why people will not allow anybody into their WhatsApps is because they're not willing to be truthful and communicate openly? Because
Absolutely. That's
what
we
why
cancel
else are you hiding
couples.
yourself?
Yeah, that's the deal breaker. Like, I actually already touched on it, and that's it right there. Like if one of a spouse is not willing to let you get in, there's something they're hiding.
Problem.
And then the issue is always, but you don't trust me. Okay, why should you even get there? We are one. The two have become one. So she should be able to just pick up my phone anytime and look at whatever she wants to look at. If she has questions about something, I should be able to answer it without any problem. So I do.
And what about like single people and dating towards getting married?
Okay.
Do you think they can also have that kind of transparency? And looking at the fact that when they're in that state, they're also kind of like exploring other options as well.
Okay, well, I mean, exploring other options, you will have to come back to that to tell me what exactly you mean.
What do you mean?
Because for me, the way I think about it is if we are dating, right, that
headed
means
toward marriage.
we are dating headed towards marriage.
You can't
Like for me, I don't believe in exploratory, just like we're just dating for the sake of just passing time, because then it's a waste of my time. It's like that's how
hard. It's too valuable for weekend recreation.
Yeah, so like that's how I look at it.
Straight.
So like how I look at it is, if I'm going to date, even the way when we met, I was not dating because in my heart I wasn't going to date until it was somebody that I was going to marry. So that was part of the reason why I was single for that long, and also, for her. So it's like
I had some boyfriends, but I just didn't have sex with them before marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pure, but I mean, sexually, but I had kissed other guys and dated other guys.
So she was,
but only three. I would have Al, Eli, and David.
Yeah.
Coming from the guys.
But here's the thing about exploring options, right?
Oh, good.
I feel like, don't you think it also depends on the stage of the relationship? Like, let's say I meet someone today, and there's another girl who might be interested in me if I took one on a date on Monday.
Okay.
Because it's cheaper, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then maybe like on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, I go
meet
out with
somebody
else because there's no commitment.
Well, no, I mean,
either one.
then we're talking about two different issues.
We're talking about two different. So to finish that question, answering that question, where I was going to is, I think what it really comes down to is the reason why I believe it should be one person at a time is because before you even get to that stage of wanting to date, you must know, first of all, what it is that you are looking for. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, then you're going to feel like you're going to have to be all over the place.
Explore.
Yeah, to explore and whatever. So first ask yourself, who am I? Where am I going? Who is that person that I can walk to that direction with?
So
once you know that,
is a sign of a lack of identity.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
You don't know what you want.
You just
That's
hit the nail.
profound.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it means, basically, right?
Exactly.
You don't know who you are. That's why you keep
Exactly.
looking around.
But also, I feel like people have too much energy. How much attention? Like you only have so much attention. You can't give it to 3 people, and you only have so much money. How many days you gonna go on?
people can juggle
a lot.
very well.
That's why I said
people
rib
can
night.
juggle
It's
very
cheaper.
well, but like if you're serious about your life,
yeah.
your heart, your mind, you won't just.
Yes, that's
Just
true.
do
Yeah,
it
because I mean,
yourself
for us, like we
everywhere.
have standards. Like even when I
Yeah.
was like, people used to call me the Black Widow, and
jeez.
because they would like apparently the Black Widow attracts like a spouse or like a
Yes.
mate and then eats them or
then-
something.
yeah.
So like, so
Be careful.
what would happen?
He was like, oh.
You better do a child. Oh gosh. Anytime
So-
from now.
So now what would happen when I was like in high school and college is I've always been this like, fun personality. I wasn't meaning to flirt. I was just like, I guess make people feel good about themselves, give them attention, look at them like genuinely care about your welfare. And so then that would make people think, oh, she's interested. And then they would ask me for a date. Well, I was very clear. I'm never going to date a guy that I couldn't see myself marrying potentially. You know? So then they would be like, well, can we go out for whatever? I'm like, well, but I'm really not interested in that way. And they're like, it's harsh. Like, but
No,
you've
you
been
gotta
sending
be
vibes. Like, I
honest.
thought we, like whatever.
Signals.
And then I'm like, no, but I mean, I could play with your heart. I could take your money and take a few free meals. But then in 3 weeks, I know I'm still going to feel the same way. So like, like
Might
we
as well
can,
not.
I might as well just tell you straight. And people are like, but Ashley, why don't you just give him a chance? And I'm like, but I know what I want. And I know I don't want that person. So, I mean, cool, I can do that. Like, I'm totally okay with getting free dinners, or free movies or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel worse playing with that person's heart. And I feel like it's just the honest thing is just tell them straight. I'm not interested in you in that way. So there's no point in you taking those Debbie's out of your wallet and spending them on me because I'm gonna break your heart. You know what I mean? Like I'm not interested in you in that way. So I think that's part of the problem is that we end up feeling sorry for people because we don't know what we want and we're bored and it's fun to just get attention and get somebody to spend nice money on you or whatever else. And so then sometimes what ends up happening is you actually do end up falling for that person, not because you actually like who that person is, but it's just
for you.
You just like they're there. They become convenient. It's like, but I mean, I'm already with Mike. I mean, he's there. I mean, I know maybe he's not exactly what I wanted in life, but I mean, he's okay. And then you end up compromising. And then either you spend the rest of your life in a compromised position knowing that it's not what you really wanted. And so you that's when affair proofing becomes very difficult because you settled and you're actually not happy in marriage. Or you end up getting a divorce or maybe you break up before you get married, but the heartbreak by that point is so much deeper,
I like what you're saying there, Ashley, because this one time we were talking about it in terms of gender-based violence, that sometimes the way dating is done and the expectation, because in economics, they say there's no free lunch. Yeah. So I wouldn't spend on anybody if I don't expect anything to return. Right. So now the problem is sometimes we think it's okay that somebody's spending on you, doing stuff for you, and you're like, I'm enjoying all this attention. Yeah. And then the person's getting nothing. And then probably sometimes the relationship breaks up and then the guy feels like, no, I'm owed something. And then maybe there's violence involved and all kinds of things. And then also just think in general, let's say people have been cohabiting and they've been sharing so much of their lives, and the guy's been building houses at the girl's yard and I mean the parents' places and everything. And now it's time to break up. You're like, I've lost so much, and it leads to a lot of emotions, and that could lead to violence.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that happen when someone builds someone else's house when they're not even married? I've always wondered, how does that happen? Why does anyone think that that's a smart thing to do?
Well, because you're connected emotionally. And, how we make decisions is at different levels. It's always not advisable to make an emotional decision. And yet that's what most of us as people do. Whether it's emotional decision to shop, to get something that you really don't need, but it was just an emotion because, and then, that's why there's window shopping, all of a sudden you see it and I must have it, that's emotional, so like it's, so like Ashley said, there's that emotional connection with this person and you really feel in your heart maybe that, I think this is the person, and I care for her or I care for him. Let me start showing that, and it's almost like it's an investment. Yeah. You see, let me show her or let me show him that I'm really serious. So I'll start helping her parents or whatever, or his parents, and then you get entangled, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh,
famous word. Yes,
I said it, and I didn't say it. And then I realized, and then you realize. now it's an expectation on the other side because you have done it once and you just keep doing it. And,
right, you set a precedent for that behavior.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much, for me, I think that's how it starts, just emotional decision.
I have a question on women who look at married men.
Yeah.
On a single basis. It's like we love to see a polished thing and we want the polished thing. Yeah. But are we setting standards for single men that are too high when we're looking for spouses now and we're dating? Are we looking for a married type man in a single dude who's trying to build himself? And how do we find practical ways of actually picking a partner without putting those standards on them?
I'll talk to that one. Okay. So I think what you're looking for in a man is someone who's teachable, someone who's faithful, and someone who's honest. As long as they're teachable and they're willing to work on anything. Percy and I could not have been more different. The polished picture that you see today was not the guy that I was. But he was willing to change, and we were willing to make compromises. He was willing to work on things. He was humble, and he was honest. And so that allowed, when you have that base, then you can work on a man, and as far as like, okay, this is how I need you to communicate. Because, I mean, he didn't know about communication. Like, no one had taught him, like, how to share your feelings. You know, it's not like his dad was coming home and saying, son, let's talk about how to express your feelings. No, not, you know, and like, his mother was very busy. Like, his father was an alcoholic, so his mom was busy trying to run the house. I mean, it's not, she was like, tell me about your day. Who are your friends? Tell me about what are you feeling about, you know, like, no, like I had to teach him those things, but he was teachable, you know? So you don't necessarily look for the man who already has the great communication skills and the conflict resolution skills.
Because it would be difficult to find.
No, that one you don't need to. You need to find a guy who's willing to work on himself and willing to learn. Yeah. Someone who's willing to say sorry, and someone who's willing to be honest, like, okay, this I don't know how to do, but I'm willing to learn. There'll be bumps on the road. It's not like it's easy when two people get together and start saying, I need you to change, and he's saying, I need you to change. Obviously, as you're changing together, there's some bumps there. Yeah. But as long as you're both willing eventually to change, then you can get through anything. You can have this be a wonderful marriage. And we were like...
Yeah. So the married guy should be okay. That's what I want.
There's hope.
Eventually, you know, like this is good. If the, you know, like if I was to get married, I could potentially arrive to this stage. Yeah. It shouldn't be now. That means I'll find the single guy who's like that, because everyone will have to. Yeah. You know.
And you also should know that the people that we are, we change as it goes to, like, I mean, I have changed so much since becoming a mother, you know? He has changed so much to become a father. Like, we have changed so much dealing with, like, you know, trauma in our life together. And, like you said, we've Canada, America, Botswana, moving around the world together. I mean, those are all things that you now see this finished product, but like you said, you don't know what went into creating that. Like,
why used to work when we didn't have the kids?
Doesn't work
wouldn't
anymore.
work now.
You know, so there's a lot of things that we have changed as people. So that's another reason we've got to find a man who's willing to change and be moldable, because he might not even know. I didn't even know. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. When we got married, I was not the cook. Like, I didn't enjoy cooking. I didn't whatever. So he had told me he likes that, but he's okay without it because it's not a deal breaker for him. And so he actually was more of like the cooker and the one who did that stuff. But now when we got married, something inside of me was just like, you know what? It pleases him. It makes him happy. Let me start cooking. Now I'm like, got a cookbook. I'm like master chef. I mean, I cook whatever. You know, like when I have kids, I started thinking eating out is not practical. I need to learn to cook all these things. But it wasn't something that he said it was a deal breaker. I did that on my own, but he would have never known we got married that I was going to end up being this like, you know, whatever, you know, when we were, I don't really like, this is kind of bad to say, but I'm not actually a kid person. Like, they annoy me. They make messes. They're loud. They're noisy. So, I mean, I knew I wanted kids just because society says you should have kids, but it wasn't ever something that I was like, oh, I can't wait to have my own children. Like, I mean, when I gave birth, they told me that as soon as you give birth, you can eat food because you can't eat the process of delivery. And I was with Anna Catherine, I was in labor for like 18 hours. I'm not eating for 18 hours in labor. There's a reason it's called labor. It's hard work. I mean, when they gave birth, they're like, do you want to hold your kid? I'm like, can I order pizza now? I was like, give the kid to him. Like, I just want to eat, you know? Yeah. Like, I was that non-maternal in my instincts, you know? But now, like, once I started having kids now, I'm like a parenting consultant. Like people come to me for parenting consultations. Yeah, I mean, you know that. You've been in my home. You know, so I mean, it's my point is you don't even know the rough diamond that's there as long as he's teachable. Because some of the qualities that they become that you see, when he married me, he didn't know I was gonna have that. When I married him, I didn't know he was gonna have that. They've evolved with life experience. So you could be sitting next to somebody who has all this that's going to be in 10 years, but you just haven't let him go through time yet. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Does that mean you guys are saying accept the rough product now?
If you can see the potential.
If you can, but you see,
it's like a diamond dealer.
But the potential aspect makes me very uncomfortable.
But again, it's the teachability.
It's the teachability,
Because you never know. We can all project, but we never know if. And I don't think we should wait for people to reach a certain stage of maturity or of teachability before we offer up our affection or offer up.
Okay, now, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's a valid point. So what we're not saying is settle. Don't settle. Because even at that point when you make a decision, you already know this person has been able to do 1, 2, 3. So you already know this person is capable of changing. This person is, I mean, if you already see red flags that it's always about him or it's always about her.
That's a selfish characteristic.
That's a selfish
red flag.
So it's a red flag. So you don't even go there. But like
if you get in a fight, that person's never willing to say sorry. That's a red flag. They're not teachable. So you're not waiting to see if they're going to change. They're not going to.
No, they're not going to.
Their character is selfish.
Yeah. So you look at the character and you see what are examples of things they've done that show me this can work. If you don't see that, then it's never. It might. Let me not say it's never going to happen.
But their character is going to have to
very
change to a different level before.
Yeah.
So it's you're looking for practical things. Like for example, when there's serving to do, around the church. I'll give you practicals. I'm all about practicals. You're looking around the church and seeing who's the one picking up the chairs when nobody else is looking. You know what I mean? Then this is a man who's not looking to be like he can serve without being told. You're looking at somebody calls and it puts him on the wrong and he tells the truth. You'll listen to those people. No, I'm on the way. I'm just there. And you're like, we're still at your house. You're lying.
You're still good to
then
take a shower.
that person could quickly lie to you just as quickly as they lied to that other person. Now that person is a liar. That person loses their job. Did they go, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity to save my money to whatever. Or does that person moan and groan and lay in bed and my life is over today? You're looking, can this person adapt? Like somebody in life, I don't know, a parent or maybe even your mom comes to her and says, I don't really like her. Like how does she respond? Does she go, okay, you know what? This is a challenge. Let me just show her that I love her. Or does she go, I don't like her. Does she? What is her you're looking for those point things that society pushes. How does that person respond? That shows you the character. So when we're saying the teachability, you're not waiting for the teachability. That characteristic is there right now. Okay. It's just what they're going to learn might not be taught yet. But you're not waiting for the person to become teachable. If they're not teachable, they're not. That's a character flag already.
It has to be.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay. That's very clear. Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up.
Okay.
Happy to help.
I have one more question. Do you think also, I'm not sure if you've ever encountered this, but do you think also sometimes self-awareness is a big part of how relationships work?
Yeah.
For instance, I don't know if you've ever met couples who have arrangements where, the man has all the money and there's certain stipulations within that marriage that these are the things you're allowed to do this and these are the things you're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And then he just don't come home with any surprise children and we're good. Have you ever encountered those?
We've encountered that all the time, but it's a pretty sad state of affairs. We encounter that a lot. In fact, this culture, even in the traditional marriage, encourage, they condone. I'm not saying encourage, but they say, don't ask your husband where he's been when he comes home late. No, I mean, I'm gonna be knowing. In fact, I'll be looking at his phone to see where he's been and there's no. Well,
and she should be able to. I mean, the same.
That's true. It's a very negative part of our culture, I think, when it comes to that. That's something that needs to be addressed more. But
so that's another reason. At the beginning, y'all asked us, why did you start this? Yeah. So, like you said, these are cultural norms that are entrenched in the way we think to the point that we actually think they're normal. Yeah. So we were trying to, when we started talking about our life, to show people there is a different way. Whether you accept it or not, that's up to you. But we want you to know you don't have to be like that because your grandma was like that, and your mom was like that, and whatever, and like your aunt is like that. There is an alternative way if you would like to have a happier marriage that does work. So that was actually those situations, because you asked have we met people like that, were actually some of the reasons why we started doing what we do, because we wanted to show people that this does not have to be our future just because it was our past.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yeah,
Guys, that is our time.
Yeah.
That is our time.
You need to come back. There's so much more we can unpack. There's a lot more.
I had so much for you, but I'll wait.
Percy and Ashley, you've been on the 4skins podcast. Thank you so much for
Thank you guys for having us.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow, good.
All right.